What kind of a sick individual do you have to be that when you're asked if you're going to attend the funeral of a fallen National Guardswoman, your response is about bragging how you won West Virginia? You're going to just brag about how you won West Virginia. Guys, take a look.
In the early stages, obviously, but do you plan to attend Sarah's funeral?
I haven't thought about it yet, but it certainly is something I could conceive of. I love West Virginia. You know, I won West Virginia by one of the biggest margins of any president anywhere.
And this is the party that claims they love the military, right? And before you conservatives jump on here, because they're going to, in the masses, and they're going to defend this by saying, well, no, he said good things about her, even in this speech, you know, even when he was addressing this situation here, he said good things about her. Let me paint a picture for you. It is your funeral. I walk in and I say, wow, they were a great person, man. I'm sorry to see them in the ground. And then I start talking about all my business success and every good thing that I've ever done, and I start to make your funeral about me. Just because he said a couple good things about her does not negate the fact that when he's asked about attending her funeral, that's his response. It is the bare minimum that when someone loses their life, to be able to stop talking about yourself for 1 fucking second. My name is Mercedes Chandler. Give me a follow, you won't see my face again. Thank you. Goodbye.
Release the MRI results, Donald. That was Governor Tim Walz's response to Trump's late night meltdown post that was full of racist remarks, derogatory terms, and downright lies. And it was intended to be his happy Thanksgiving message that he did at midnight, that was pages long, so long that it required 2 separate Truth Social posts because he ran out of characters on each one. Guys, this is not normal. This cannot be okay. And what he said about Tim Walz cannot be normalized or accepted. He is calling for the reverse migration to happen in this country. He's saying he is going to denaturalize citizens from third world countries. They're going to review anyone who has come in under Biden, and based on how you like the United States, whether you support the United States, fit into society here or not, I don't know how they're going to determine that. They will deport you on how they determine that. Guys, this is serious, bad stuff. It's not normal. It needs to be called out. This is Governor Walz's response, and this is what Trump said. I mean, he used the R word. Are we serious right now? The President of the United States called another governor that. I think Tim Walz is correct in asking for those MRI results. We need to see those. We need to know what they were looking for. This is not something that someone in their right mind would post. So we need to see those. Let me know if you agree. Comment, like, share, spread the word. Make sure everyone knows what this lunatic is posting in the middle of the night on Thanksgiving. Follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
All right, Donald Trump, this message is for you. Look, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. But let me tell you something. You need to do better as a president. You want to be a president? You want to be a leader? You need to stop calling women pigs. You need to stop being so nasty to human beings. You need to start respecting the office that you serve. And better yet, even though I didn't vote for you, you need to start doing a better job for me and everyone else. Because at the end of the day, let me tell you something, Mr. President. You work for me. You work for the American people that voted.
That's the position we're in on so many of these deployments right now. They've been held illegal, but judges have put a stay on their own orders so that Trump can appeal it. And of course, the appeal process takes months and months and months. Why do we allow this shit to happen? What if Donald Trump has sent the military into Chicago and gave them orders to go through the voting rolls and start murdering Democrats? Just go into Chicago, find Democrats, and just start killing them. What if that's what he was doing? And a judge ruled that that's illegal. But you know what? I'm going to put a stay on my order. So Trump, you just go ahead and keep killing Democrats. Because even though I've said it's illegal, I want to give you an opportunity to appeal. Why do we do this? Would we do that in that situation? I would say, of course not, but I don't even know. Maybe they would.
Attorneys. And here's the other thing. The obstruction of justice and the conspiracy to obstruct by hiding these boxes, these documents from the feds, from the grand jury, and from his own attorneys. The conspiracy between Donnie and Walt, Trump and Nauda, is so transparent and so brazen and so easily proved and so criminal and clumsy that it's like Donald Trump took a page out of the playbook, conspiracy to obstruct justice for dummies, and he followed that manual. I urge you, friends, if you've read no other legal documents in connection with the legal hellscape that is Donald Trump and the endless crimes he's committed against the people of the United States in violation of our federal laws, please sit down and read this 44-page document, this indictment, because it leaves no room for dispute. Anybody who is willing to engage in a fact-based analysis and reach a conclusion about whether Donald Trump committed grave crimes against the United States will be persuaded by this sworn document, this indictment that sets out the evidence supporting the conclusion that Donald Trump committed crimes. And of course, his legal team just quit or they were fired, and he's got to get new lawyers now. This has got to be legal team number 18 because he keeps burning through them. Well, let me end where I started today, friends. Donald Trump is done. Donald Trump is done. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again.
Call me Ulysses S. Grant. It's time to talk about Donald Trump's Else for the Week. Even the holidays can't save you from your own incompetence. You tried to make the D.C. shooter Joe Biden's problem, but it turns out you were the one who gave him asylum. You're also the one who put the National Guard in D.C. for no good reason. And now one of them is dead, and I hope she haunts you for the rest of your days. Just full of jump scares in the night. And she'll have a lot of time to do that because you don't work anymore. The New York Times is starting to put out articles about how you're too old to do your job. You're only really doing public appearances from noon to 5 now because you fall asleep at all other times. She can haunt you from noon to 5. I'm sure that's fine. No matter what nonsense you make up about Walmart's Thanksgiving meal, Americans are spending less money on the holidays in general. But it didn't start there. Consumer spending has been slowing down for months because you're too busy invading Venezuela to make anything cheaper. People are just giving up on selling their houses, and borrowers are defaulting on all kinds of loans, cars, student, credit cards, at rates not seen since the Great Recession. Correct. The private sector shed jobs at a rate 20% higher than the previous 4 weeks. You tried to fire an official from the Copyright Office at the Library of Congress, and the Supreme Court was like, ew, you gotta wait for all these other cases to go through. She's still got her job. She might be the only one in the country. Yet another judge has stopped your administration from eliminating herds of wild horses in the West. I'm just going to point out that this is explicitly called for in Project 2025 in the Department of the Interior section. Why would the Bureau of Land Management care about this so much? Because if there are protected wild horses on the land, you can't mine it. And the guy who wrote that chapter is a lawyer for the miners. Anyway, too bad, so sad. You are going to have to pay that frivolous lawsuit penalty. Yep. Is this when you got so mad and started tweeting the R word in your Thanksgiving address from the golf course? Because that was weird. Was it after 5 p.m.? And yet another judge has struck down ICE's policy of holding people without bond while they await their immigration proceedings. You're just going to have to find someone else to fill those beds for your for-profit prison friends. So you fired all the lawyers in the DOJ, and the ones that you didn't fire quit because you're cuckoo. And now there's nobody left to try these cases, and you just keep losing them. Now Pam Bondi's ranting about how she's going to appeal. She's going to appeal. She's certainly welcome to do that. But if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the judge's papers that he gave you in the James Comey case, you'll see where he says the statute of limitations is up. You don't get extra days because your attorney was a ding-dong. She was a ding-dong from the day she started the case, which means all those days counted in the statute of limitations. Bill Pulte, the member of your administration who's been using trumped-up mortgage fraud charges to go after a whole bunch of Democrats very unsuccessfully, is now being sued by one of them. Oh, and he's running for governor. Won't that be fun? Trying to get Tina Peters moved to federal court so you can pardon her. She's in jail in Colorado for election fraud that she committed for you. And Colorado was like, ew. The newly enlarged Democratic majority in the Virginia State House is going to ban facial coverings for cops. You should have run a real candidate in Virginia. Just FYI. We're tired of you, Grandpa. And by we, I mean all of us. Everyone. It's okay, babe. I'm sure if you keep doing the strongman cosplay that's gotten you into this mess, it'll magically get you out.
You're getting ready to sit down at a big table with, friends and relatives, people you maybe haven't seen since last Thanksgiving. And a lot of people may be confronted with the unfortunate reality that you're going to have some MAGA family members at the table hanging out around the house, and they're going to bring up Trump, and they're going to bring up how great he is. And this segment is for those family members that have to put up with MAGA family members. Because according to the latest polling data, Donald Trump is now officially the least popular president of the United States in over 50 years. We have not had another president of the United States with as high of a disapproval rating as Donald Trump has since Richard Nixon resigned. 1974. Richard Nixon's disapproval rating in 1974 was 67%. Donald Trump's disapproval rating today is 63%, according to a recent CNN SSRS survey. 63% of Americans disapproved of Donald Trump's handling of his job as president. So we have to go back 51 years to find a president that was as disliked as Donald Trump is today. Now, there's a small caveat. So let me remind everybody that at one point in his presidency, George W. Bush also had a 63% disapproval rating. So Trump is tied with Bush, but only beaten by Nixon. So when your MAGA relatives start waxing on idiotically about how great Trump is and how he's cleaning up the country and how his tariffs are, we're going to get the tariff checks, remind them that the vast majority of the country has never lived in their life with a president less liked than the way Donald Trump is now. Because if you're under 50 years old, right, Trump is, of course, tied with Bush, the least liked person to ever be president. So 80% of the U.S. population, technically I think it's like 82.7% of the population is actually under the age of 50. So 82% of the country has really never seen a guy as disliked as Donald Trump, certainly not as quickly. George W. Bush didn't hit 63% disapproval until I think it was the last year of his second term. And, we had the Great Recession. He had horrible numbers, still kind of carrying over from Hurricane Katrina and all that. George W. Bush was awful, but it took a lot of awful to pile up to get him to 63%. Trump's been in office 10 and a half months, and he's at 63% disapproval, which, by the way, is higher than his disapproval rating from any point in his first term. Even during COVID, when he was going out doing those daily
Well, it looks like Christmas came early for the Trump administration and white supremacists everywhere.
Earlier today, on the eve of the Thanksgiving holiday,
Wasn't feeling it anyway.
2 members of the National Guard serving in Washington, D.C. were shot at point-blank range just steps away from the White House.
It was about 1,500 feet away, which is like 4,000 in Trump steps.
They had been deputized as part of the most successful public safety and national security mission in the history of our nation's capital.
He has to lick the wound that is his pride first.
Act of evil and act of hatred.
It was redundant.
was a crime against humanity.
It was so evil. But when I think of crimes against humanity, once I get past the card game, I think about things like genocide and, protecting child predators.
The love of our entire country is pouring out for them.
Those words are so contrary to his spirit, his body's contorting. I know that just sounds like a joke, but that's true. That's true.
As President of the United States,
It was subcontracted by Russia and Israel. Well, Israel just kind of owns us.
I am determined to ensure that the animal,
If the criminal's not white, he calls them animals. For real.
based on the best available information,
Which probably came from the same people that tell him that there are drugs on the boats.
the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner.
To the outsider, that would sound impressive until they heard it was Kristi Noem and then Googled her. And we're like, what? And we're like, yeah, we know.
From Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth.
It's easy to poke the bear when you have a bunker under the East Wing. We don't all have one of those. I mean, I have an East Wing. I just don't have a bunker. No.
He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021
Gonna do a separate post about that, because that's a story that needs to be told.
on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about.
He sounds like an old-timey baseball announcer right here. Listen.
Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His
No, not baseball, like the horse race guy. Horse racing is bad.
status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden.
Oh no, that one's on Trump. If it worked that way, the guy fucking is crazy with a gun.
Disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country.
I have a theory that the main reason that Donald Trump hates Joe Biden so much is because Joe Biden and Hunter are so close, even though they went through so much stuff. Biden gave Hunter this unconditional love. That's something that Trump never knew from his father, and certainly has never given his own sons. So, just a thought.
Scott Bessent is telling people to uproot their lives for $25, move out of blue states, and go to red states. This is one of my favorite clips of the week. I'm going to explain this, okay? Here is Bessent with an idea. What do you do about your personal inflation rate? Here's his idea.
Kristen, I can tell you that the Council on Economic Advisors has a study. You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Look at how satisfied he looked. There's this moment where there's this smirk on his face right here. This smirk. This is the smirk of a guy who thinks he's just done a big boy. He thinks he just found a really clever one. Now, here's the thing. I looked for the data. Bessent says inflation is 0.5 point higher in blue states than in red states. I looked for that information. I couldn't find it. I don't know whether that's true. But let's imagine for a moment that Bessent is right, just to show you how weak this idiotic argument is. Suppose that a household spends 60 grand a year on everything, okay? Housing, food, gas, just let's pick it $60,000 a year, okay? A 0.5 percentage point higher inflation rate means, for example, if in the red states inflation is 3%, in the blue states it's 3.5%, okay? That's like $300 a year. That's like $25 a month, okay? So what he's basically saying is, in the blue states, your cost of living will go up by $25 a month more than it will go up in the red states. He is saying to families, solve your inflation problem by moving from a blue state to a red state. Now, aside from losing out on that savings just because of what it costs to move, right? Like ridiculous. Forget about that even. What he's ignoring is that people make way more money in the blue states. Blue states are well above the national median income. You look at Massachusetts, $107,000 household income. Maryland, $102,000 household income. California, $90,000. And then you look at Mississippi, where the household income is $55,000. Louisiana, it's $58,000. West Virginia, it's $60,000. So in his, the idea here is move from a state where on average you will make a lot more money, pay to move to a state where you will make less money, to fix your family's inflation by saving $25 a month, but your salary might go down by $20,000. Now, this puts aside for a second that life expectancy in blue states is higher. This puts aside that access to health care is greater. Bessent's hack is take a pay cut, move your kids into, on average, worse schools with weaker healthcare systems, and take all the cost that it takes to move to save $25 a month in inflation, while maybe shaving time off of your life expectancy. That sounds good to anybody? Have at it, Haas.
But more interesting than that is, and that certainly is why a lot of Republicans are talking about resigning or not running again or whatever, is partly because it's no fun to be in the minority. You can't really do very much. And also because of the leadership, as it is, of Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who is a Republican from Louisiana, who simply has been refusing to put forward anything, even that members of his own conference. I always get confused. The Democrats have a caucus, the Republicans have a conference. Even things that members of his own conference want, because he is doing Trump's bidding. He is very much doing Trump's bidding. And so a lot of those Republicans are like, I want to get out of here. I can't do anything. My constituents yell at me all the time because I'm trying to do stuff for them. Again, even Republicans are usually trying to do things that their members of their districts want. And I can't do anything because Mike Johnson keeps shutting me down. What's the point of this? I might as well be spending my time either doing what I want or running for a different sort of office. So you're actually seeing people focusing on going back to their states and working in their states. So that's that part of Marjorie Taylor Greene's letter was really interesting. But to my mind, more interesting is something that she articulated in that letter, or at least alluded to in that letter. It's not a terribly well-written letter. But that I'm seeing in a lot of other places. And that was two things. First of all, her emphasis on, I forget what she calls it, not a uniparty, but the idea that both the leadership of both the Republicans and the Democrats are not working for the common people. And also the idea that she is working for the common people. And she said, when the American public figures this out, I will be here for them. To my mind, that sounds like she's making a bid for power that does not involve MAGA, that she is looking at what seems to be the collapse of MAGA. I'll talk more about that in a second. And she is taking a chance on staking out a different kind of future by riding what seems to be a new kind of, well, it's an old kind of political wave, but for this moment, a new kind of political wave into the future. And that is a focus on the economic issues that the majority of Americans are now quite focusing on because of the degree to which the Republican Party has not been answering their needs. So the collapse of the Republican Party, or the crumbling of the Republican Party, looks to me very much like the crumbling of the Republican Party in the 1890s, or of the Whig Party and the Democratic Party in the 1850s. We lose the Northern Democrats almost across the board in 1855 and 1856, after it becomes clear that the majority of the Democratic Party is siding with the elite Southern enslavers, which a lot of Northerners don't care about. They don't care about Black rights. They don't care about human enslavement. But what they don't want is the government to be beholden to a very few, very rich people. And when that happens, Northerners vote Democrats out of office in droves in the elections of 1855 and 1856. And this actually, I'm going to play this out a little bit before I go to the late 19th century. It's worth thinking about what that means. If the districts that are kind of what we would call purple districts are really mad enough, they get rid of the people that they think are working for the very wealthy, or a group that people don't like. But the place that remains in the hands of those people tend to be. I've lost the plural of the verb at this point. They tend to be quite extreme districts. So what happened in 1855, 1856 in the Northern Democrats is that the moderate districts all just threw out their Democrats and turned to the rising Republican Party. But the extremist districts went more extreme than ever. So this is how you're going to end up during the Civil War, with mostly war Democrats in the North, and that's a really broad brush. But the Democrats who remain in the North, like Clement Vallandigham, for example, those of you from Ohio probably have heard of him. Or if you were in 8th grade and had to read that story, The Man Without a Country, that was about Clement Vallandigham, which again, some